Well, it's been a few days since I've had time to work on the bike, and two things have happened since then. The brake master cylinder came in, and I got COVID for the second time. And although I still have 5 more days left of quarantining, after much praying, I do feel better enough to get out of the house and actually mess with some stuff, because cabin fever is a real thing. Moving right along with the wiring, I'm going to be getting rid of where the old plastic fuse holder went that held the old school style glass fuses like this guy. And I picked up a Posi-Lock blade fuse holder, kind of modernized the whole thing here. But I'm going to need to cut these old terminals off the end, do some trimming to where I have some room to work here, strip about 1/4 inch of insulation off each end, and get this new guy installed in there. Now, the way these Posi-Lock connectors work is you just unscrew the black piece off the end of it, one of them, and poke your wire through here. I think I'm gonna have to get rid of this extra insulation. It is in the way. Now we stick the wire through, kind of just fan out the end of it a little bit. And then just cram it in there and start tightening it down. Tightening it down. There it is. Strong. All right, the other side is going to be a little trickier. See how I'm going to go about doing this. All right, there we go. Of course, I guess all you saw was the back of my hand. Sorry. Now I've only had a blade fuse. Now the battery that I have is actually not really for this bike, but it is brand new and it is what I have. But as you can see, it's quite a bit smaller in every direction. But I don't want to buy another battery. This one's brand new. And if anything, maybe I'm saving some weight. But I think what I'm going to do is make a case within the battery holder, 3D print it, so it actually holds it in there nice and snug and gets it covered up with black, so from the side you don't see the label. And just like magic, over half a day later, I have my 3D printed battery box. I drilled a couple holes in the bottom for drainage, and it actually only took about 15 hours to print because I decided to make it an inch shorter. But in theory, this should fit very snugly. Our open battery area here, very snugly. There it is, bottomed out. And our battery should slide right down in it. Very snugly, geez Louise. And there we go. That's not going anywhere. So I tried pushing the starter button to see if the starter solenoid was okay and couldn't get anything to happen. So I took it off to kind of inspect it. But what I should have done is just tested for continuity, because the wire that goes in here for the starter button is just one single wire, and it is actually a ground wire. And since it's just one single wire, what's happening is when you press the button, it's making the wire have contact with this housing, which in turn has contact with the handlebars and grounds everything out. But my problem, I have a test light here hooked up to the positive terminal of the battery. My handlebars do not have ground. The triple tree has ground, but the bolts holding the handlebars on, no ground. Handlebar itself, no ground. So I'm gonna have to fashion some sort of ground wire, something small that goes from somewhere on the triple tree, one of these places that I have nearby that has negative ground, and run a wire and I guess sandwich it in somewhere under this clamp that holds the handlebars, so the handlebars will be grounded. I did already check the starter solenoid just by jumping a wire and grounding it out to the frame of the bike, and it does make clicky sounds, so it's good. I just need to get the button to work. Okay, I ran a jumper wire off of the bracket that holds the speedometer and tachometer in place, and ran it to the handlebar clamps here, and the handlebars now have continuity. They are grounded to the bike. All right, so I got this back on here, my throttle side controls. I know that the handlebars are now grounded. I checked, and this handlebar control that has the button is also grounded. So before I turn the camera on, I figure, okay, I'm just gonna turn on the switch and then hit the button, because I should have continuity now, and that way I should be able to hear the starter solenoid click. And that's all I was expecting, because I mean, the bike's almost 50 years old. When I got the bike, the starter button didn't do anything. You had to kickstart it, always had to kickstart it. I even bought a starter rebuild kit, and it got delivered this past week, so I figured, great, I'm gonna show, turn on the video, show that the starter solenoid clicks when you hit the button, so we're in good shape, and I can move on to the next step and start filming the rebuild process of the starter motor. So I turn on the switch, I go to hit the button, expecting to hear the solenoid click, and I got that instead. Dude, the starter works. It works perfectly. Anybody want to buy a rebuild kit? So I'm in the process of getting all the wiring hooked up, and I figured I might want to go ahead and film this one part just in case somebody out there actually needs this bit of information. And it's how to take a extremely small gauge wire like this and connect it to a much thicker wire. And it's actually pretty easy. What you want to do is get a butt connector, the same or the proper size for the larger wire, and then just slide it completely over the smaller wire, pulling it all the way through so the butt connector is in the back. And then you'll take these two wires, hold the small wire against the large wire at the base where the insulation is, and then just wrap it around until it's all the way wrapped. Slide the butt connector over that, get it pressed in there really well, and then take your crimpers and crimp just the side that has the large wire going into it. And you have successfully attached a large gauge wire to a very small gauge wire without a bunch of soldering and doing things more permanent that would have to be cut off, because this is the wiring for the tail light, and the original tail light that I bought isn't going to work because it's going to interfere with the tire. So what I got is actually just a LED strip tail light, and I figure it'll get me by until I figure something else out. I got my turn signals put on and wired up. I got the headlight back in it, and I think as far as electrical connections, I'm actually done. And the horn. And here is the LED strip light that I bought to go on the back. It just will attach right here on that rail. And if I push on the brake pedal, we got brakes. Wonderful. It's really starting to come together. I got a little more work done without the camera going. Just really trying to hurry and get this thing done while there's still time this year and it's warm enough to ride. Got a lot of my cable management going there. Got everything kind of up and out of the way. And of course also have my new ignition switch installed. As well as the new clutch cable is now installed and working. Got the side cover back on and installed a brand new chain, because the one that was on it was pretty much so rusted and corroded that it was posable. You could bend it however you want and it would stay that way. Next, I think I'm going to see about getting the exhaust hooked up. I invested in new nuts and washers, so they'll be nice and shiny. Since I'm getting so much closer to having this thing put back together and getting the carburetors on there and needing to get the thing going and getting everything dialed in, it would be good to actually have a gas tank on there with gas in it and not have to feed it with a bottle. So I'm going to go ahead and do the fun part and get to body work and get this tank sanded down, get the body filler in there, fill in any of the little dents and dings, and get this thing painted. Now, something that I got to take care of, on the underside of the tank, there's a lip right here that is holding the back half of the tank too high off of the bike. So I'm going to have to eliminate this lip so it sits lower. All right, I trimmed off that little lip there, and it does sit a lot flatter on the bike now, or at least not flatter, more even with the top of the engine. So next on the agenda, I've got these rubber bushings here that the old tank would sit on, which they do fit this tank, but they are a little too far forward and a little too high up. So I'm thinking that I could possibly thread this to where I can run a nut on there and run a bracket back a little ways with a post sticking out of it that this can fit on, so that way I can get it exactly where I need them to go, or at least that's the working theory. Using a magic marker, I went around the tank and marked some of the more or less obvious little dings in there. So the next step is to go ahead and get the body filler going and whip this thing into shape. I'm gonna go ahead and hit this with a second coat. It might need a third after that, not sure, but for right now, I have another matter to take care of, and it's right here where it looks like somebody dropped the bike back when this was still on a Suzuki, and it looks like the triple tree whacked it right there, and there was another dent further down here where it looked like maybe the clutch or handlebars hit, but I got a nice creased dent right there, so I'm going to have to fill that in to get the curve to go the way it's supposed to right here, and also make this radius match the other side. So that'll be a hoot. One more really thin coat through here, and I believe it'll be ready to prime. If it needs anything else, it'll show up after it gets primed. As it is, it's getting hard to detect anything weird. So one more thin coat, sand it off, and ready to prime. Well, the time has officially come to paint the tank. I was originally going to paint the tank blue, but after seeing what it looked like when I had all the paint stripped off of it and it was down to bare metal, I decided to go with silver instead. And I'm actually going to be using Rust-Oleum, there it is, high performance wheel paint. Just a nice slightly metal flake silver. So let's get this show on the road. So quick change of plans. I was getting ready to put my mask on and start spraying this and noticed a blemish right there, which I went ahead and hit with some spot putty. Had to let that dry, wet sand it off, get the whole thing wiped down and taken care of again. So now I'm ready to paint, as far as I know. Well, the coverage on this paint is not that great, so I'm definitely going to be hitting it with more than one coat. Coat number 2. The spray pattern on this paint is pretty horrible. All right, time for third and final coat. The tank is now painted, and I've got this raised area that goes down the middle, so I was thinking it would look pretty cool to paint that black and possibly even put a couple small accent stripes down the middle. All right, I'm just going to do the center stripe first, and then afterwards I can decide if I want to add some accent stripes on either side of it. All right, I got this all taped off to do my accent stripes. And then that will be it for putting on color. That's it. Let that dry for a few minutes, peel off the tape, and get it ready for clear coat. All right, ready to hit it with the clear coat, and I'll be using this Spray Max 2K Clear, which has a little cap, red cap that you put on the bottom here. You bash it and it releases hardener into it, so it's real honest to goodness clear coat. And of course you want to be wearing a mask when you spray any of this stuff, but especially this. I mean, it's just pretty much straight up aerosol poison. And I expect to have some fairly decent orange peel with this, but I'm going to hit it with more than one coat so I can go back and sand and buff it to make it look really nice. All right, gonna come back and hit that again in about 8 to 10 minutes or so. Not a huge fan of how this spray nozzle kind of has a tendency to spit and sputter every now and then. Other than that though, it's going on pretty good. So I'm going to let that sit another few minutes and then hit it one last time. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you already haven't, and hit the notification bell so you'll know when the next part of the series comes out. And until next time, see ya.